I never imagined the day would come when my own daughter would call me selfish. But that's exactly what she said. The morning after I buried my sister, her exact words were still echoing in my head. You chose a dead woman over your living grandchildren. And standing there in my quiet kitchen, holding my phone, I realized something that took me 68 years to understand. I had spent my entire life being useful to my family, but I had never been truly valued. And the moment I stopped giving, I stopped existing to them. My name is Helen Whittaker. I'm 68 years old. For 38 years, I worked as a fourth-grade teacher in the same public school. I raised one daughter. I buried one husband. And until 2 months ago, I believed my family loved me. Now I'm not so sure. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when my phone rang. Karen, my daughter. I smiled when I saw her name. Karen didn't call very often. Usually she texted when she needed something. But a phone call, that meant maybe she just wanted to talk. Maybe she missed me. I answered on the second ring. Good morning, sweetheart. She didn't return the greeting. Mom, I need you Saturday. No hello. No how are you. Just a request. I should have been used to that by now. But something in me still hoped. I'm sorry, Karen, I said gently. I can't this Saturday. There was a pause. Then her voice sharpened. What do you mean you can't? I leaned against the kitchen counter. Aunt Ruth's funeral is Saturday morning. Silence filled the line. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. Can't you just go to the service and come back? I blinked. What? It's not like she'll know if you leave early. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Ruth wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend, my only sibling, the person who had held my hand when my husband died, the person who called me every Sunday for 42 years. And now she was gone, 3 days in the ground, and my daughter was asking me to hurry through her funeral. I'm helping with the arrangements, I said quietly. I'll be there most of the day. Karen sighed loudly. Mom, Tyler has swim practice, and Madison has soccer. Derek and I have that conference in Nashville. I knew about the conference. Karen had mentioned it weeks earlier. What she hadn't mentioned was that she expected me to cancel my sister's funeral for it. Maybe Derek's parents can help this once, I suggested. She laughed. You know they're useless with the kids. Then she said something she probably meant as praise. Tyler only wants you anyway. But the words didn't make me feel proud. They made me feel tired. So very tired. I'm sorry, I said. But this weekend I can't. The silence that followed felt heavy. Then Karen spoke again. Cold. Sharp. Well, I guess I know where your priorities are. I closed my eyes. Karen, good to know Aunt Ruth matters more than your grandchildren. Then she hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, holding the phone. The room was quiet. Too quiet. On the refrigerator door was a photograph of Ruth from her 70th birthday. She was laughing, holding a slice of lemon cake, her gray hair blowing in the wind. 3 months later, a blood clot took her in her sleep. No warning, no goodbye, and now, apparently, no time for grief either. At the time, I thought Karen was just stressed. Parents get overwhelmed. Life gets busy. People say things they do mean. I assumed we would talk after the funeral. I assumed she would calm down. I assumed she would apologize. But looking back now, that was the moment everything in my life began to change. I just didn't know it yet. The funeral was on Saturday morning. Grace Lutheran Church looked exactly the way it had my entire life. The same wooden doors, the same stained glass windows, the same quiet smell of old hymn books and polished pews. Ruth and I had been baptized there. We sang in the children's choir together. And 17 years earlier, she had sat in the front row, holding my hand when I buried my husband. Now I was sitting there alone. The pastor spoke gently about Ruth's kindness, about how she had volunteered at the community kitchen every Tuesday, about how she never forgot anyone's birthday. I kept thinking about the last thing she said to me on the phone. Helen, don't forget to take care of yourself too. At the time, I laughed. I always laughed when Ruth said that, because I had never been very good at taking care of myself. I was better at taking care of everyone else. After the service, we gathered at Ruth's house. My niece Lillian had arranged everything beautifully. There were trays of food on the kitchen counter, Ruth's famous lemon bars, little cucumber sandwiches, and the same blue tablecloth she used every Easter. People hugged me, old neighbors, friends from church, former coworkers. We shared stories. We cried. We laughed about memories from 50 years ago. For a few hours, my sister felt alive again in those stories. And for the first time since she died, my chest didn't feel so heavy. I got home around 8 that evening. The house was dark and quiet. Grief is a strange thing. Sometimes it waits patiently until you're alone. I made a cup of chamomile tea, sat down in the living room, and finally allowed myself to cry. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep in your bones. The kind that leaves you exhausted. Around 10 that night, my phone buzzed. A message from Karen. I wiped my eyes and opened it. The words hit me like a slap. Thanks for choosing a dead woman over your living grandchildren. My chest tightened. There was another message right after it. Tyler cried himself to sleep because Grandma didn't come today. And then one more. Don't bother coming by anymore. We need space from your selfishness. Selfishness. I read that word again and again after 40 years of being a mother and 14 years of being a grandmother. One day at my sister's funeral had turned me into a selfish person. I didn't sleep that night. I walked around the house, touching small pieces of my life. The photo of Tyler's first day of kindergarten, the macaroni picture frame Madison made for me in second grade. A clay handprint Karen made when she was 6. So many years, so many memories. Had all of it meant nothing? The next morning, I tried to call Karen. Straight to voicemail. I sent a message. Karen, I love you. Can we please talk? No response. By Sunday afternoon, I couldn't sit in the silence anymore. So I drove to their house. The same house I helped them buy 8 years ago. They were short on the down payment, $23,000. Money I never asked to be repaid, because that's what family does. They help each other, or at least, that's what I believed back then. I parked in the street and walked up the driveway. The front door was still painted that soft sage green Karen, and I had chosen together. I knocked. No answer. I rang the doorbell. Still nothing, but I could hear the television inside. The kids were home. I knew their schedule. I had picked them up from school every Wednesday for 6 years. Finally, I reached into my purse and took out my key. Karen had given it to me when they moved in. Your family, she said back then. You should always be able to get in. But when I put the key in the lock, it didn't turn. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I realized they had changed the locks. I stood there on that porch for several minutes, not angry, not even surprised, just stunned, the quiet kind of pain that spreads slowly through your chest. Eventually, I walked back to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and started laughing, not because anything was funny, because the other option was screaming. My phone buzzed again. A text from Derek, Karen's husband. Helen, I think Karen just needs some space right now. I stared at the screen. The message continued. Also, I noticed the Venmo transfer for the kids' activity fees didn't come through this month. My stomach dropped. $300 a month for 4 years. Swim lessons, soccer, dance classes, art camp, every month, without fail. And the first thing he noticed was the missing payment. Not my grief, not the funeral, not the locked door, just the money. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook, old habits from my teaching days. When something didn't make sense, I made a list. At the top of the page, I wrote, everything I've given. The list filled 3 pages. $23,000 for the house, $18,000 for the kids' activities, car repairs, heating bills, groceries, vacations, birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, emergency loans that were never repaid. By midnight, I realized something painful. I hadn't been treated like family. I had been treated like a resource, a service, a backup plan. And the moment the service stopped working, it was replaced. If you think that realization hurt, wait until you hear what happened 2 weeks later, because that's when I made the decision that changed everything. And my daughter never saw it coming. For the first time in 14 years, I stopped reaching out first. No calls, no messages, no checking in. I simply stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. 1 week passed, then another. Karen didn't call. Derek didn't call. No pictures of the kids. No updates. Nothing. It was as if I had disappeared. On the 16th day, I received an email. Not from Karen, from Tyler's school. Apparently, I was still listed as his emergency contact. There was a permission slip for a field trip that needed a signature. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Karen with a short message. This was sent to me by mistake. I thought you should see it. Her reply came quickly. 4 words. I'll update the contact list. That was it. No greeting. No conversation. Just a correction. In that moment, I realized something painful. Karen wasn't angry anymore. She had simply removed me, like deleting a contact from a phone. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen. She had helped me years earlier when my husband passed away. She answered on the second ring. Helen, it's been a while. How can I help? I need to make some changes, I said. To what? I took a deep breath. To everything. We met that Friday afternoon. Patricia's office smelled like coffee and paper. The walls were lined with neat folders and law books. I placed my notebook on her desk. My lists, my bank statements, my receipts. Teachers are good at documenting things. Patricia looked through everything slowly. After several minutes, she removed her glasses and leaned back in her chair. You've been extremely generous, she said carefully. I shook my head. No, I replied quietly. I've been extremely naive. She didn't argue. Lawyers rarely do. Instead, she asked the practical questions. Would you like to revoke the power of attorney you gave your daughter? 3 years earlier, I had given Karen that authority before my hip surgery, just in case something happened. Yes, I said. Immediately. Patricia made a note, and the recurring transfers to her account. $300 every month. For the kids. For 4 years. Cancel them, I said. All of them. Then she opened the final document. My will. At that moment, everything I owned was scheduled to go to Karen and her family. My house, my savings, my retirement fund. Patricia looked up. Who would you like to name as the new beneficiary? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I thought about the last few weeks, about the person who had called me every few days after Ruth died, about the person who drove 2 hours just to bring me dinner, about the person who sat with me while I cried. My niece, Lillian. Change it to Lillian Carter, I said. Patricia nodded and began writing. Then she asked gently, what about the grandchildren? That question stopped me. Tyler, Madison, they hadn't done anything wrong. They were just children caught in the middle of adult mistakes. After a moment, I spoke. Create a small education fund for them. Patricia looked relieved. When will they receive it? When they turn 25. And their parents? Nothing. Not $1. When I left Patricia's office that afternoon, I felt something strange. Not happiness, not revenge, something quieter. Clarity. For the first time in years, I felt like my life belonged to me again. 3 days later, my phone rang. Derek. I already knew why he was calling. "Hey, Helen," he said. His voice sounded overly friendly. Too friendly. I was just checking in. I waited. Then he finally said it. I noticed the Venmo transfers stopped completely. Of course he noticed. "That's correct," I said calmly. "I ended them." There was a long pause. Then he laughed nervously. "Wait, you're serious?" "Yes, but the kids have activities," he said quickly. "Madison's recital costume alone is $200. I took a slow breath. "Then I suppose you'll need to budget for it." Another silence. This one colder. "Helen, this isn't like you," he said slowly. "Are you feeling all right?" I almost smiled. After everything that had happened, he thought I was the one acting strangely. "I'm perfectly fine," I said. "In fact," I paused, "I'm better than I've been in years." Then I hung up. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in a long time, it wasn't from fear. It was from freedom. But the real shock came 3 days later, when a letter arrived in the mail. Corinne's handwriting on the envelope, and what she wrote inside changed everything again. The letter arrived on a gray Thursday afternoon. I almost didn't open it. Corinne's handwriting was unmistakable. Sharp, neat, the same handwriting I had once taught her to form when she was learning to write her name in kindergarten. For a moment, I simply held the envelope. Part of me wanted to throw it away, but curiosity won. I opened it slowly. "Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this situation is getting out of hand. Derek told me you stopped supporting the kids' activities. How could you do that to your own grandchildren? Whatever issues you have with me, they didn't do anything wrong." I felt my chest tighten, but the letter continued. "Tyler keeps asking about you. He doesn't understand why Grandma disappeared. I've had to make excuses. If you're trying to punish me, fine. But don't punish the children. That's cruel." I kept reading. "Frankly, I'm starting to wonder if something is wrong with you medically. Maybe you should see a doctor. We can talk when you're ready to be reasonable. Until then, I think it's best we maintain some distance. Corinne." I read the letter twice, then a third time. Not one word about Ruth. Not one apology. Not even a small acknowledgement of the funeral. Just accusations and concern disguised as control. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and put it in my desk drawer. Not as evidence for a court, just evidence for myself. Evidence of who my daughter had become. The following weeks were strange. Not bad, just unfamiliar. For the first time in more than a decade, my schedule belonged to me. No Wednesday school pickups, no emergency babysitting, no last-minute calls asking if I could cancel my plans. At first, the quiet felt empty. Then slowly, it began to feel peaceful. I started going to the library again, something I hadn't done in years. I joined a small grief support group at church. There, I met a woman named Barbara. She was 76. Sharp eyes, quick humor. One afternoon, we sat drinking coffee after the meeting. "I know that look," she said suddenly. "What look?" "The one where you realize your family loves what you do for them more than they love you." I blinked. "How did you know?" Barbara smiled sadly. "Because I lived it." She told me about her daughter, how she drove the grandchildren to school every morning, packed their lunches, watched them every weekend, until one day her doctor told her she shouldn't drive anymore because of her eyesight. "So I told my daughter I couldn't take the kids to school anymore," Barbara said. And do you know what she told me? I shook my head. She said I was abandoning the family. Barbara took a sip of coffee. "So what did you do?" I asked. "I cried for about a month." She shrugged. "Then I adopted a dog and started living my life." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "Did she ever come around?" Barbara nodded slowly. "Yes, but things are different now." Better, she said. "I have boundaries now." One evening, about 2 months after the funeral, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" There was a small pause, then a quiet voice. "Grandma." My heart stopped. "Tyler." "Yeah," he whispered quickly. "I'm using Mom's old phone from the drawer. She doesn't know." I felt tears instantly fill my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart." Then he asked the question that broke my heart. "Why don't you come see us anymore? Did we do something wrong?" I pressed my hand against my mouth. "No, honey, no. You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why can't you come over?" he asked. "Mom says you're busy." "But you're never busy on Wednesdays." Wednesdays, that had always been our day. I swallowed hard. "It's complicated, Tyler. Grown-up stuff. But I think about you and Madison every single day." He sounded relieved. "I made you something at school," he said. "A picture of us at the beach last summer." I smiled through my tears. "With Gerald the crab." He laughed. "Yes, Gerald. I'm keeping the picture safe for you." "Good," I said softly. "Keep it safe." Suddenly, his voice changed. "Urgent. I gotta go. Mom's coming." Then quickly, he whispered, "I love you, Grandma." My voice shook. "I love you too, sweetheart." The line went dead. I stood alone in my kitchen for a long time after that call. My chest hurt, not because of Karen, but because of the children caught in the middle. I almost called Karen that night, almost apologized, almost offered to restart the money, the babysitting, everything, just to see those kids again. But then I remembered something Ruth once told me, something she said years ago when I was overwhelmed helping everyone. She had taken my hands and said, "Helen, you cannot set yourself on fire just to keep other people warm." So I didn't call Corinne. Instead, I made a different decision, and that decision would soon bring someone unexpected to my front door. 3 days after Tyler's secret call, there was a knock on my door. It was late afternoon, the kind of quiet hour when the neighborhood feels half asleep. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I froze. Madison was standing on my porch, my 12-year-old granddaughter. Her backpack hung from one shoulder. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. "Grandma," she whispered. "Madison." My heart started racing. "Honey, what are you doing here? How did you get here?" She looked down at her shoes. "I took the bus, the one that goes past the library." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "Does your mom know you're here?" I asked carefully. Madison shook her head. "She thinks I'm at Sophie's house." I should have called Corinne immediately. I should have taken Madison home right away. That would have been the responsible thing. But instead, I stepped aside. "Come inside, sweetheart." I made her hot chocolate, extra marshmallows, the way she always liked it. She sat at the kitchen table, where she had sat 100 times before. But this time, she looked older somehow, quieter. After a few minutes, she spoke. "Mom and Dad fight a lot now." I listened without interrupting. "Tyler cries at night sometimes," she continued softly. "He asks where you are." My throat tightened. Then she looked at me. "Mom says things about you." "What kind of things?" I asked gently. Madison hesitated. "I don't want to repeat them." Then she lifted her chin. "But I don't believe her." "You're good, Grandma. I know you love us." Tears filled my eyes again. We talked for nearly 2 hours. I made grilled cheese sandwiches, her favorite. We looked through old photo albums. She laughed at pictures of her mother as a toddler. "Mom used to be so little," she said in wonder. "Yes," I smiled softly. "Everyone starts out small, even the people who seem the biggest later." Eventually, it was time to take her back. I didn't drive her home. Instead, I drove her to Sophie's house. Her friend opened the door and nodded without asking questions. Before Madison got out of the car, she hugged me tightly. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "I hope so," I said. "I really hope so." She studied my face. "Even if Mom says no." I looked at my granddaughter, 12 years old enough to start seeing the truth of the world. "Love doesn't need permission," I told her gently. "It just needs patience. And I have plenty of both." She hugged me one more time, then ran inside. A week later, there was another knock at my door. This time it was Corinne. She looked different, tired. Her eyes had dark circles. She stood there silently for a moment. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside. She sat on the couch, the same couch where she used to crawl into my lap when she had nightmares. For a long time, she stared at her hands. Finally, she spoke. I didn't come here to apologize. I waited. Not exactly. She swallowed. I came because Madison told me she came here. I nodded. Karen rubbed her eyes. At first, I was furious. Then I was scared. Then I realized something. She looked at me. I'm exhausted. From what? I asked. From pretending everything is perfect. She laughed bitterly. Derek and I are struggling financially. We fight all the time. And I was so desperate to keep everything together that I leaned on you for everything. Her voice cracked, and I never stopped to think about what it was costing you. I looked at my daughter carefully. I never asked you to be perfect, I said. I only asked you not to treat me like an ATM. Karen flinched. Then she whispered, I think maybe that's exactly what I did. Tears began to roll down her face. Real tears. Not dramatic. Not manipulative. Just tired. I took you for granted, she said. For years. I can't undo what I did. The logs, the messages, the way I treated you after Aunt Ruth died. She wiped her face. But I want to try. I sat quietly for a moment. Then I told her the truth. I'm not ready to forgive you. Her shoulders sagged. Not yet, I continued. But I'm willing to try something different. She looked up. What do you mean? We start over. Not as mother and daughter. Just as two adults who both love the same children. Karen listened carefully. The kids can come here, I said. You can bring them on weekends. We'll see how things go. That's all I can offer right now. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, I can work with that. She stood and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she paused, then quietly said something she should have said months earlier. I'm sorry about Aunt Ruth. You deserved support that day. I nodded. Yes, I did. She left. The following Saturday, Tyler ran up my driveway like a rocket. Grandma, he nearly knocked me over with his hug. I missed you. I have so many things to tell you. I can swim without floaties now. And Gerald the crab probably has bobbies. Madison walked up more slowly behind him, smiling softly. Hi, Grandma. Hi, sweetheart. That afternoon, we baked brownies, played cards, watched a movie. At some point, Tyler fell asleep with his head in my lap, exactly the way Karen used to when she was little. Madison leaned against my shoulder, and in that quiet moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not perfect, not easy, but peaceful, because I finally understood something my sister, Ruth, tried to teach me before she died. Love isn't about giving until you're empty. It's about knowing your worth and trusting that the people who truly love you will meet you there. If you've ever loved someone so much that you forgot yourself, You're not alone. And if you're just starting to find your way back, it's never too late.